I woke up at 5:30 sharp, same as always. The room was still dark, but I knew my way around. I padded into the kitchen, barefoot, started the coffee, hazelnut blend, touch of honey, no cream, exactly how she liked it. That part didn't take thought anymore, just muscle memory. While it brewed, I ironed her blouse. Light blue, silk, with the weird pleats that always got wrecked at the dry cleaner. I could never get the shoulders quite right, but I tried. I always tried. She walked out a few minutes later in her robe, eyes locked on her phone, thumbs flying. Didn't look up until she grabbed the coffee and took a sip. Then she glanced over and said, "Dinner tonight. Caldwell Group. You remember the seating?" I nodded. "Good man," she said, gave me that smile. Tight, efficient, the kind people give when the dog brings the paper without chewing it. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. She didn't say thank you. Never did. But I laid out her vitamins in that silver tray her mother gave us for Christmas. 7 little compartments, like we were 80 and needed help remembering. She never missed a day. I made sure of it. By 7:15, she was dressed, bag in hand, out the door with a "text me if anything changes." She didn't kiss me goodbye. She hadn't in months. After she left, I rechecked the place settings for the dinner. Napkins folded, water glasses spotless. I knew which wine glass went with which dish. I knew to seat Morrison away from shellfish and to keep Marla Caldwell facing the east wall so she wouldn't complain about the light. Everything had to be perfect. I used to joke I was her house manager. Now, it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a title, like I should have had a name tag. The weirdest part, I didn't even hate her. Not yet. I just didn't know where I fit anymore. That hit me hard that morning, standing at the sink, rinsing out her mug. My own coffee sat cold on the counter, untouched. The house was silent, too silent. I looked around at the spotless counters, the organized cabinets, the tray of pills, and the white dress shirt hanging perfectly on the back of her chair. The valet barely closed the car door before she was halfway across the lobby, heels clicking like a stopwatch. I caught up just as we reached the ballroom doors, gold trim, tall archways, the whole place smelling like expensive perfume and wilted roses. She scanned the room once, spotted the board wives near the ice sculpture, and said, "You can handle the cards, right?" Before I answered, she was gone, her laugh already mixing into theirs. I stood there holding our coats like I was the help. The name card table was a mess. Place cards, dinner assignments, 2 pens, and a list in her handwriting that only made sense if you spoke fluent corporate politics. I fixed what I could, grabbed our seats, and made my way to the main table. Caldwell was already seated, his partner beside him, scrolling through emails like the night was just background noise. And next to them, her, Savannah. Early 30s, tall, expensive highlights, voice like she practiced it for TED Talks. She was laughing too loud at something my wife said, shoulder brushing against hers like they'd done this before. My wife saw me and waved, said, "This is Savannah, corporate development." No last name, no title, just Savannah. Like that was supposed to be enough. Savannah gave me a bright smile. "You must be Kay's other half?" Kay. She said it like a pet name, casual, intimate, too familiar. I'd been married to her for 9 years and never heard anyone call her that. I took my seat without a word. The server poured wine. Small talk started. Caldwell talking about quarterly growth. Savannah tossing in buzzwords like disruption and value stream. My wife nodded, chimed in just enough to stay dominant, always in control. And I sat there, watching Savannah lean a little too close. Her hand on my wife's arm when she laughed, fingers brushing her sleeve like it wasn't a big deal. My wife didn't pull back, didn't even flinch. By the second course, the music softened and the lighting dimmed to that golden hue every hotel thinks flatters skin tones. Savannah leaned over, right in front of everyone, and adjusted my wife's necklace. A slight twist, a brush of the collarbone, fingers lingering longer than they should have. I clenched my jaw and forced a smile. Nice to see such hands-on mentorship in corporate development. Caldwell gave a quick chuckle. His partner glanced up, but the table mostly went quiet. My wife didn't even look at me. She just reached for her wine, sipped slow, then gave me that look across the linen, controlled fury dressed up as charm, smile in place, eyes sharp, like she was saying, "Keep performing. We're still on stage." Savannah blinked like she didn't get it, or maybe she didn't care. Kay's always been good at lifting women up, she said, and I could almost hear the double meaning hanging in the air. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The server came with the next course, some overpriced lamb over a smear of beet puree, and everyone acted like nothing just happened. But I could see it, the shift. The guy across from me stopped chewing mid-bite. My wife's fingers tightened around her fork. Savannah had that glow people get when they think they're winning something that isn't theirs. And I sat there, chewing the same dry piece of meat, wondering when exactly my seat at that table stopped meaning something. I used to matter in these rooms, used to know the players, the deals, the rules. But now, I was furniture, well-dressed background noise. I excused myself before dessert, went to the bathroom just to breathe, washed my face, counted to 10. When I came back, my wife and Savannah were leaned in close, whispering, laughing, heads practically touching. I took my seat again, didn't say a word, but inside, something shifted. Not jealousy, no, not that. I didn't want what she had. I just realized finally that she didn't want me there. Not really, and Savannah, she knew it too. The cheesecake had barely hit the table when Savannah pulled out her phone and angled it like she was checking the lighting. I watched her frame the shot. My wife in the background, head tilted, lips parted mid-laugh. Savannah snapped the photo, leaned toward me, and whispered behind the rim of her wine glass, "Caption, winning." I didn't flinch, just set my fork down and looked at her, then at my wife. "You two always this close in the office?" It came out steady, not loud, not angry, just clean, direct. The room didn't go silent, but the table did, like someone hit mute. Forks paused mid-air. Caldwell's partner coughed and looked down at his plate. My wife's smile, gone. Frozen mid-expression, like her face didn't get the update in time. She didn't look at me when she said it. "Don't do this here." Then under the table, I felt it. Her fingers tapping the inside of my knee. Once, twice, firm, deliberate, that old signal. We used it for years, at parties, at family dinners, board events like this. It used to mean reel it in, not now, sometimes even save me. A silent line between us, a shared code. But this time, it didn't feel like a lifeline. It felt like a button she pressed to shut me down, like I was a machine with one function, silence. I pulled my leg back, just slightly, enough for her hand to miss the third tap. Nobody said a word. Dessert was untouched. I think Caldwell pretended to check a text just to break eye contact. Savannah looked smug, like I'd embarrassed myself. Maybe I had, but I couldn't swallow it, not this time. My wife finally picked up her fork, calm, like nothing happened. "So, Craig," she said to Caldwell's partner, "are you still flying out to Seattle next week?" The whole table exhaled like she gave them permission to move again. I stared at my napkin, fists under the table. Not clenched, just tight enough to remind myself I was still in my body. That tap haunted me. Not because of what it meant, but because of what it used to mean. On the drive home, we didn't speak. She typed on her phone nonstop, screen lighting her face as we passed each intersection, fingers moving fast, probably recapping the whole night to Savannah or burying it under work emails. I stared out the window. Streetlights flicked past like a metronome, one after another. Yellow, red, green, repeat. At a stoplight, I glanced at her. She didn't look up, didn't even pause. I almost asked who she was texting, but I didn't. I already knew the answer wouldn't matter. The silence wasn't heavy. It was clean, cold, like a contract had been voided, and we were both just running out the clock. When we pulled into the garage, she opened her door before the engine even shut off. I sat there a moment longer, hand on the wheel, heart beating slower than it should have. That tap still echoed on my leg like it branded me. And I knew, whatever we were before, whatever signals we used to trust, she'd turn them into tools, not for connection, for control. She barely waited for the door to close behind us before spinning around. One hand on the light switch, the other still holding her purse like the night wasn't even over yet. "You embarrass me in front of Morrison," she said, sharp and rehearsed. "Until you apologize." Guest room. I didn't argue, didn't roll my eyes, just nodded and said, "Okay." She paused for half a second, probably expecting pushback, maybe a weak excuse. When I gave her nothing, she turned and walked off toward the bedroom, like it was just another resolved task on her to-do list. I headed down the hall, past the closet she'd converted into her workspace, grabbed a pillow from the linen shelf, my phone charger, and a paperback I'd stashed months ago behind a stack of old magazines. It was a novel I bought on a trip once. She'd skimmed the back and said it was a waste of my energy. I figured that meant it had something real to say. The guest room was cold. Not just the temperature, though, yeah, the vent barely worked, but cold in the kind of way that felt honest. No lavender sprays, no gallery wall of curated black and white photos, just a bed, a lamp, a dresser we hadn't replaced since our second apartment. I dropped the pillow, plugged in my phone, and sat down on the edge of the mattress. It didn't dip under me like our bed did. No memory foam, no 1,000 thread count anything. But it was mine now, at least for the night. I flipped through the first few pages of the novel, couldn't focus. My brain kept rewinding. Back to Savannah's grin, back to that tap under the table, back to the silence in the car that felt louder than a shouting match. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. The room didn't care if I belonged. It didn't need me to smile or nod or prep a guest list. It just existed. 4 walls and a bed. Simple, uncomplicated. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about whether she'd approve of the way I folded my clothes or if the blanket looked sloppy. Around 2 a.m., I gave up on sleep. The kind of rest I needed didn't live in this house anymore. I made my way to the kitchen, grabbed the tin of old tea bags we kept, just in case, and boiled water in the quiet. Steam fogged the window over the sink, while the city lights blinked outside like they didn't know I was awake. I poured the hot water into a chipped white mug, one of the few things she hadn't replaced. Back then, I had titles that meant something. Husband, godfather, maybe even partner. Now, I was just a man drinking bitter tea at 2 a.m, in a kitchen he stocked, in a house he didn't fit in, holding a mug that belonged to a version of himself that didn't exist anymore. I just stood there sipping slowly, eyes on the skyline. And when I finally walked back down the hall to the guest room, I didn't close the door all the way. Not because I was hoping she'd come find me, but because for once, I didn't need her to. I didn't sleep long. The weak morning light barely hit the hallway when I opened the guest room door and stepped into the closet across from it. I reached for a sweatshirt on the top shelf and knocked over a pile of her Pilates bands and foam blocks. They tumbled to the floor, and behind them, something caught my eye. A cardboard file box I hadn't seen in years. My name was written on the side in my handwriting. I dragged it out, set it on the bed, and flipped the lid. Old bank statements, investment printouts, business files from before I slid into the stay-at-home role she swore was temporary. Stuff I thought got tossed during one of her closet purges. I went through the folders slowly. Then I hit the credit card statements. Not the shared ones, the ones she insisted stay for work purposes only. That's where I saw it. Charges marked as executive coaching. Vendor name, S. Keaton, Savannah. Month after month. Then airline tickets billed through her firm's travel desk. Weekend dates, no conferences listed. Hotel charges flagged as client meetings, booked for 2 guests. My stomach tightened. Not jealousy, indignation. Real, sharp, earned anger. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through contacts until I found a number I hadn't used in over a decade. Marcus picked up on the 4th ring. "Well, damn," he said, voice groggy. "Didn't expect to hear from you before sunrise." "I need eyes on some expenses," I said. Quiet eyes. That woke him up. Marcus had done forensic audits for me back when I ran logistics teams, before her career swallowed mine whole. I sent him photos of the statements, 1 page at a time, pacing the room while he worked. 2 hours later, he called back. "You've been funding her perks, my man. Coaching, flights, meals, none of it's legit. And if the firm sees this, she's cooked medium well." I rubbed my face hard. I figured. "You need someone sharper than me now," he said. "I'm going to text you a name. Lena Walsh. White-collar defense, asset recovery. She plays chess while everyone else is eating paste." A few seconds later, her contact popped onto my screen. I showered, shaved, threw on a clean shirt, and headed to the cafe Marcus recommended. A small place on 24th Street, with burnt coffee and chipped mugs that made the whole thing feel real, not staged. Lena walked in exactly on time. Late 30s, sharp blazer, hair pulled back like she didn't have patience for anything touching her face. She sat down, nodded at me once, and said, "Show me." I slid the stack across the table. Statements, screenshots, photos of the files. She flipped through them fast, eyes narrowing at certain charges, tapping her finger on the totals. Savannah Keaton, she muttered. Corporate development. Cute. Another flip. Another tap. She billed this one on a Sunday, Lena said. And this hotel doesn't even have conference rooms. And this flight? That's a resort route. I watched her connect dots I had only half noticed. Finally, she set the papers down, leaned back in her chair, and looked at me with a steady, almost satisfied expression. She's cooked, Lena said. Let's build a fire. She gathered the pages, stacked them clean, and stood up. Tomorrow morning, bring the rest of the originals you mentioned were stored in your office. And don't warn her, not even by accident. She reached for her coat and added, if you want out, I can get you out. If you want justice, I can get you that too. Just tell me which lane we're driving in. I grabbed the file box off the seat beside me. We're driving, I said, and I followed her out into the cold morning. Lena didn't waste time. 2 days later, she sent over a full checklist. Coded names, burner sims, a decoy calendar in case anything looked off. You're not moving out, she said. You're disappearing. The moving company showed up on Friday morning, exactly 9:45, in a plain white van with green fresh cleaners printed on the side. The guys were ex-military, quiet, professional, Lena's people. They didn't ask questions, just followed the list. I'd spent the night before tagging everything with blue painter's tape while my wife was at her quarterly spa retreat in Sedona. She never missed it. 3 days of cucumber water, eucalyptus steam, and whatever ego-boosting mirror work her coach had her doing now. I started in the guest room, the only space that still felt mine, then the office. My records, my books, my old field notebooks she once called clutter. Every drawer I opened felt like diffusing a bomb. Had to move fast, clean, no fingerprints. I passed the housekeeper while she was dusting the wine shelf. She didn't say anything, just gave me a small nod, tight, brief, not surprised, like she'd seen it coming before I did. I almost walked right past it, but something pulled me toward the cellar log, an old notebook we kept to track our wine collection. She treated it like a museum catalog. I flipped through and found it. 94 Cabernet, Napa Reserve, bottle I'd saved from a road trip through Sonoma years ago. Line item, client gift, delivered, destination, Savannah's building. Full address written like a shipping label. That bottle wasn't cheap. I'd stashed it for a night that meant something. Now it was a footnote in a business transaction. I didn't smash anything, just closed the book and packed the rest of my things. That night, I crashed at my brother's place in Jersey. Couch was lumpy. Blanket smelled like takeout and sweat. But nobody called me reckless for using the wrong setting on the washer. Nobody sighed when I set my coffee mug directly on the table. The TV remote had no labels, but we watched the Knicks lose and laughed like it actually mattered. I didn't sleep much, but it was the kind of tired that felt earned. Next morning, the movers met me back at the condo. We cleared the rest, my closet, the bookshelf, even the old photo albums I thought she might have noticed were missing. She didn't. No texts, no calls. The house felt hollow, furniture still in place, art still hanging, but the soul was gone. Or maybe just mine. I left the fake cleaning receipt on the counter. Nothing dramatic, no note, no big declaration, just silence and a cleared calendar. By noon, I had everything I needed loaded up and sent to storage. All I kept with me was a go bag, a week of clothes, my laptop, and the watch my uncle gave me when I turned 25. The rest could wait. I stood in the entryway one last time and looked around, not to say goodbye, just to make sure I hadn't left anything that belonged to me. I let myself back into the condo that Monday morning, with the spare key she never bothered to hide, calm, clear, no emotion left to waste. I'd timed it down to the minute. She'd be back from her spa retreat by 9, gym, email check, conference call at 10. Her routine hadn't changed in 5 years. I dropped the divorce packet on her home office desk. Thick envelope, white, clean, clinical. Inside, copies of the receipt logs, travel records, Savannah's billing trails, and one typed cover page that said exactly what needed to be said. You taught me the system. That was the whole message. No begging, no guilt. I didn't stick around to see her open it. I went to the guest room, my old cell, and sat on the edge of the bed, already dressed, already packed, duffel at my feet. All that was left now was the weight. I didn't check my phone, didn't pace, just stared at the wall like I was in holding, waiting for someone to come cuff me or cut me loose. 37 minutes later, she knocked. 3 soft raps. Not angry, not rushed, just measured. I looked up as the door opened. She stood there in full office mode. Black slacks, white blouse, not a hair out of place. But her eyes didn't match the outfit. They were scanning, calculating, like something had gone off script and she hadn't rehearsed this part. Her voice came out cold, clipped. "Have you learned your lesson?" I didn't move, didn't blink. "You'll have to be more specific." She flinched, barely, but I caught it. The half-second delay, the blink she couldn't control. That polished armor she wore cracked at the collar. It wasn't rage this time, not even indignation. It was fear, not of me, not physically. That's never who we were. But fear of the system turning against her. Fear of exposure, fear of no longer being the smartest one in the room. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I stood up slow, grabbed the duffel, and walked past her like I was walking off a job site for the last time. Not a single word between us. She didn't stop me, didn't yell, just followed me with her eyes as I crossed the hallway toward the door. Then I felt it. Movement behind me, her hand reaching slightly, too slow to be casual. She was going to do it. That little tap, that same spot on the inside of my knee, the move that used to mean, don't make a scene. Remember, we're in this together. Not anymore. I turned the handle, pulled the door open, and stepped out before she could touch me. 3 days after I walked out, Lena called. "Board's sniffing around," she said. "They've got questions about Savannah's value add. Timing lines up a little too clean for their comfort." I leaned against the fridge, let the words settle. "They digging deep?" "They started light," she said. Then someone flagged the billing structure. "Looks like Savannah's salary didn't match her title. No direct reports, no initiatives. She's dead weight with a branded purse." I didn't laugh, but the corner of my mouth twitched. Oh, Lena kept going. "Your wife gave a quarterly presentation yesterday. Nothing new in it. No deliverables, no action plan. Just buzzwords and charts from last quarter. They shredded her in Q&A. Publicly?" I asked. "Internally. But loud enough that half the room left with questions. She's cornered." I hung up and went back to unpacking, carefully, box by box, room by room. Every old receipt, tax doc, and family photo had a story, but I wasn't feeling nostalgic. I was building a file. One life ends, another gets sorted into folders. That Friday afternoon, just after lunch, Savannah showed up at my office. Reception knocked once and said, "There's a woman out here, says she knows you. She's upset." I came out and found Savannah standing near the coffee machine, arms crossed, makeup streaked, eyes raw. Hair looked like it hadn't been brushed since morning. She didn't even say hi, just, "You used me." I raised an eyebrow. "I did? You dragged me into your divorce, into all this." She waved her hand like it was smoke. "I didn't even know I was a cover story. You made me look like—" "I didn't make you look like anything," I said flat. "You just weren't supposed to be seen." Her eyes welled. "I thought she stopped herself. "I didn't know what you two had. Neither did I." I reached into my desk drawer, pulled out Lena's card, and held it out. "She's good at untangling rich mistakes," I said. "Tell her everything, or don't. Your call." She didn't take the card at first, just stood there, breathing hard. Then, slowly, she reached out and snatched it like it burned. She left without another word. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Marcus, just a link to a news brief. The firm had suspended my wife pending an internal audit. Something about policy violations and inconsistent expense reporting. The PR team tried to say it was procedural. Nobody bought it. Board meetings moved to private rooms. The firm took down her profile photo. Press contact got rerouted to the legal team. I didn't celebrate, didn't post anything, didn't send a single "told you so." But I did go home, open a bottle of that '94 cab she gave away like it meant nothing, and pour myself a glass. Not to gloat, just to mark it. The Yankees were on. I turned up the volume, let the sound fill the room. And for the first time in months, the silence didn't follow me in. We met in a glass conference room downtown, neutral ground, but it felt like enemy territory. The mediator, some stiff in a navy suit with a soft voice, tried to open with something warm. "This is about moving forward with clarity and dignity." My wife didn't even look at me, just opened her binder, clicked her pen, and started flipping. It felt like a board meeting with tears just under the surface. Asset lists, valuations, joint property, verbal sparring. All business until it wasn't. She fought for the artwork, the one she used to call tacky back when we got it from that gallery in Austin. It clashed with the rest of her curated color palette, but now it was suddenly a must-keep. Fine, I said. Hang it in whatever room you end up alone in. She didn't respond. I gave her the espresso machine, too. That thing I hated, loud as hell, needed constant descaling. She claimed I never learned how to use it. She was right. I asked for 3 things: my dad's vinyl records, my late uncle's watch, and the old varsity jacket I hadn't worn in over a decade. She blinked. Why that stuff? Because it's mine, I said, and it's not worth anything to you. She paused. The mediator looked like he wanted to step in, but didn't. She signed off on it without another word. Then came the car. She argued hard for it, like it was the last symbol of control left. You never even liked that model, I said. I want it. I shrugged. Take it. I'd rather walk than owe you gas money. That landed. Even the mediator shifted in his chair. The whole thing took 4 hours, but it felt like 8. Every line item was a memory she'd twisted into leverage. Every decision felt like trading pieces of myself just to be done. Final documents were printed and signed on a Thursday. Afternoon sunlight poured across the table like the universe was trying too hard. She signed first, clicked her pen shut, stood up, and walked out without looking back. No goodbye, no acknowledgement, just heels on hardwood, then the slow hush of the door closing behind her. Lena sat across from me, flipping through her copy of the paperwork. She didn't rush, just scanned everything, crisp and clean. Then she looked up and pushed the folder across the table. You're free, she said. Now go decide what that means. I picked it up. The weight didn't feel heavy, just final. 3 months later, I opened the door to my new office. Small, clean, quiet. No glass walls, no buzzwords. Just a sturdy desk, a coffee pot that didn't argue, and a door that locked. I put up a plaque outside. K. Malley, Personal Logistics and Consulting. Same name, same skill set, just no longer buried under someone else's title. At 9 a.m., sharp my first client showed up. Mid-40s, wore an old sales conference pullover like a badge of survival. Said he used to manage a region before his wife cleaned out his checking account and his self-esteem in the same month. He sat across from me, eyes worn out, voice thin. I don't need therapy, he said. I nodded. Good, I don't do therapy. We talked about asset separation, basic structure, mental resets. I showed him how to track expenses in plain English. Gave him a grocery list that didn't involve frozen dinners or pity. Walked him through how to cook for one without eating like someone in timeout. Near the end, he asked if I thought he'd lost everything. I said, you didn't lose it. You just gave it all to the wrong person. That's fixable. He sat with that for a minute. Then he shook my hand like I'd handed him a ladder. By lunch, I'd gotten 3 emails. Friends of friends, men who'd heard I help guys reset without rage. No court dramas, no revenge plots. Just clean exits, full control, no noise. I wasn't building some empire, just a new way forward. One guy at a time. That night, I went home, cooked a steak medium rare, and opened a beer that didn't have to be craft approved. My dog, rescued him 2 weeks after the signing, was passed out on the couch, snoring with zero shame. The Yankees were on. I watched the game with the volume up and the lights on. No one to tell me the mood needed adjusting. On the coffee table sat a paperback I'd bought years ago. Dusty, never touched. She once called fiction a waste of productive energy. I opened it and started reading. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man who lost something. I felt like a man who walked out of the guest room and back into his own life.